Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to be talking about the overall market because we've seen a lot of volatility recently. Lots of ups, lots of downs, lots of big ups, lots of big downs, a lot of things going on like that. And so I just want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing here. Also, I want to take a look at the overall TVL staked within the entire crypto ecosystem. We actually haven't even returned to previous all-time highs yet. So I want to talk a little bit about that as well and kind of look at some of the data that we're seeing there. So anyway, let's go on ahead, dive right in. Starting out looking at crypto bubbles, what we can see, like I said, lots of volatility. We're seeing big ups, big downs, some sideways, some, just everything's kind of all over the place. If we look at the week, we are actually red. We can see a pretty decent bit of pullback coming in across kind of the entire crypto market. We do have a couple starting to buck that trend. There was a point in time earlier in the week where literally everything was red. We are starting to see some greens popping in here, which is a good thing to see. If we look at the monthly though, we are still seeing basically green all over the place. So things looking pretty good. Overall, crypto still in a fantastic state. We are seeing a little bit of more choppiness though coming in here, and I think this kind of makes sense with what we're seeing. However, if we do look at the stock to flow model, what we can see is we are sitting in kind of like the light orange part of the cycle. And if we look previously, light orange was really strong to the upside in 2013. It was not really to the upside here in 2017. Is kind of like where we started moving up. It hadn't really seen any of the craziness yet. That kind of came in the, I would say, yellow and light green section. Here in 2020, the orange was where we really did start to move up, and then yellow is kind of where we started to at least hit our first peak. We did come back for a second peak, and this is where we actually did hit another all-time high. But basically, I mean, most of the gains we had seen, honestly, by the end of this first little run up. What we are seeing here is we are seeing a move, I would say similar in magnitude, probably to what we're seeing, honestly, maybe even a mix between 2020 and 2017. It looks like we've gone up a little bit more dramatically than what we saw kind of at this same point in 2016. 2020, though, we are seeing maybe not as quite as steep of a run up, at least so far from what we saw there. So kind of a little bit of mix of the two. We can see at every point in the past, we have come above this level. If we were to hit this level currently, it's about 194,000. It's really hard to say. I don't mean to be the guy that's Mr. Doom and Gloom and throwing FUD around and whatnot, but to me, by all sorts of metrics, it looks like we might not be hitting a lot of these things that we have been hitting in the past. Stock to flow, 180 to 200,000, depending on when we hit it, depending, possibly even up to 400,000 if we make it to, April of 2025. We also looked at another similar chart on the channel the other day, which was the Pi cycle top. If we go and we look at the Pi cycle top right now, we can see that we're quite a ways away. Let's zoom in a little bit here. We're quite a ways away from hitting that. We did see in June, we did actually get closer to it. In the past, though, theoretically, whenever this crosses, you are 3 days away from the all-time highs, or the highs of the cycle, I guess I should say. So far, we can see we're very distant from that. So between this and also what we were seeing on the stock to flow model, it looks to me like this is, who knows, maybe this time is different, maybe it's not, but this to me looks like it could be the cycle that we aren't seeing what we've seen at least every single point in the past. And I do think that kind of makes a little bit of sense. Bitcoin's already above a $2 trillion asset. Now, if you look at it compared to gold, that's about a fifth of the market cap of gold. So potentially there is, much further room to run. However, though, there does become a point at which this is going to have to break eventually, given what we've seen in the past, right? I mean, we've seen ridiculous gains basically every cycle previous to this one. And even this cycle, we've seen really strong gains, even from bottom to top. But we're now at the point where we're not dealing with a $100 billion asset anymore, or a $1 billion asset, or anything like that. It's $2 trillion. And so for us to double, we need to add an extra $2 trillion to the value of the asset, which that's no small feat to do that, right? And so that's going to be something that I think is going to be a little bit difficult. And I do think at some point we're probably going to have to see this break. Again, not financial advice. I have no idea what's going on within the future. And a lot of the times, I mean, I think if you were to tell somebody, 5-6 years ago that Bitcoin was going to be sitting at $100,000 right now, they'd probably think you were nuts, right? So there is that level of like, maybe it does happen, and the reason it does is because we can't just really imagine that it's even possible at this point. So hard to say for sure, but what we can see looking at the Bitcoin chart is we've seen a lot of choppiness up at this level, probably between like 91,500, between like 101,000. We could even just throw it all the way up to like the all-time highs that we've seen, up at about 104,000. Basically between this range, we've seen a ton of volatility. We've seen big ups, big downs, little bit of sideways, big ups, big downs, big ups, a whole bunch of stuff. Even in this one candle on December 5th, we saw big ups and big downs all in one day. I mean, it was a massive thing. And so, this is what we are starting to see at this top here. We are seeing that the Bollinger Bands are condensing a little bit. So that does mean that potentially we could see a breakout one direction or the other. It still seems to me like we might be seeing a little bit of a pullback. However, I will say the longer that we hold at this level, the less I'm convinced that that's actually going to happen, just because we are showing strength. If we were going to break down, I would expect us to really not be putting so much volume up at this level, because once we put a certain amount of volume up at this level, it does become rather hard to break down below. Anything is possible, right? But the longer that we hold up here and the more volume that we put in, particularly between these two bands of support and resistance, the more I think that it's possible that we actually will not come down in potentially below this $90,000 mark. What we could still do, though, is depending on time, we have been following this trend line. If we were to extend this trend line out and drag it through, we do see that this trend line does actually cross this support and resistance level that we have been bouncing in between. And this would hit between the end of January and the beginning to middle of February. So there is the possibility in which maybe we just kind of bounce around and do a whole bunch of nothing for the next month or 6 weeks. And then at this point, we essentially bounce back off of this trend line and continue our move to the upside. Again, really hard to say. There's a million different options out there in terms of what could actually happen. But overall, I mean, this seems like a possibility to me, at least. And so anyway, if you are interested in trading Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, XRP, ICP, whatever, anything for that matter, please feel free to use my link in the description below to get signed up for BTCC. I do still have that really great deal working with BTCC this month. It's a 10% bonus on first-time deposits. Really, really good deal. I mean, if you are looking for a place to trade anyway, you might as well get a 10% boost on your money if you ask me. If you're looking to bring in $10,000, you would essentially get $1,000 for free. And then let's say you trade all that in 2x, you are essentially getting an extra $2,000 for free off of what you really wouldn't have had either way before. And so in my opinion, the 10% bonus on first time deposits is really, really nice. Also, they do have extra bonuses of up to $10,055 per user. So that's in addition to the 10% bonus on your deposits that you do bring in. So a lot of opportunities for you to get some pretty decent amounts of money in here from BTCC. Also, they've been around for 13 years, so you don't really need to worry about them being one of those pop-up exchanges that is only here for, basically the bull run and then they go away. Not really a risk here. I mean, obviously anything can go poorly, but with BTCC, I have a bunch of trust in them just because they have been around basically longer than most of us have been in crypto. So I feel like that's a pretty good sign. Also, they've got 300 plus crypto futures as well as up to 500x leverage. I personally don't ever trade 500x leverage, but if that's something that you are interested in doing, feel free to do that. Also, no VPN or KYC necessary if that's something you're interested in as well. So next, I want to take a quick look over the market overview. Again, just a quick look. We can see that we've moved back into neutral. We were sitting basically in the overbought section. We can see there are a couple still sitting in overbought, Sui being one of those, Link being another. They've both moved pretty well over recently because of some decent news. Also, Sui's just been really, really strong this cycle, so that's not too much of a surprise there. But overall, as we can see, the majority of the dots that we're seeing in here are in that gray neutral zone. We can see open interest and volume still, it's ticked up a little bit, but still kind of not doing too much once we had that kind of massive explosion of open interest right after the US election. We can see we have moved back up into extreme greed due to some of these recent moves to the upside. We did actually pull back into greed for a little while when we were starting to see some of these pullbacks, but as I've said, there's just so much volatility, things going up, things going down, things going sideways. Everything's just kind of going all over the place right now, which is obviously different from what we've seen in the past couple of weeks where everything was going one direction and that was up and up big, right? And so we're not seeing that anymore. I would imagine we'll probably see that a couple more times through the rest of the cycle, but that's usually not the norm, right? The norm is kind of this chopping around, trying to liquidate people, trying to catch people overexposed, that type of stuff. What we can see on the liquidation map is, billions of dollars on both sides. So basically whichever direction the market moves, a decent chunk of people are going to get liquidated. We can see within the past 24 hours, $300 million liquidated. These days, that seems to feel like a pretty small amount, but if we would have seen this a couple months ago, I mean, that would have been the biggest day we'd seen by like multiple times in like months, right? So how the markets change very quickly. Looking at what I wanted to get into though right now is essentially looking at DeFi Llama and checking out the entire crypto ecosystem. Now, what we can see is at the peak of the 2021 bull run, we can see that TVL hit just shy of $180 billion in market cap, where stablecoins were only sitting at about $143 billion. Well, now what we can see is something a little bit different. So right now we're seeing stablecoins at over $200 billion in market cap, where TVL is only at about $130 billion. So this indicates to me that we've probably got a pretty decent run up to go still within the crypto market. Obviously, most of this I would say is going to happen in altcoin season, just because Bitcoin isn't typically known for having a bunch of TVL. Obviously, we can see that Bitcoin is the 5th largest, so they are starting to get some more TVL within their ecosystem. There's been a lot of things going on within Bitcoin. We actually just had a video earlier today talking about that. If you're interested, feel free to check that one out. But overall, what we're seeing is still a lot to go in terms of like TVL and the overall crypto ecosystems getting more money pumped into it. There's a lot of AI going on. There's a lot of DePIN going on. There's a lot of RWA going on. NFTs may have a comeback. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff where we could see a lot of money continue to pour into the crypto ecosystem overall, I would say. So I'm interested to see kind of how much we see come in, where it goes primarily, what are the hot sectors. I'm thinking AI will probably be the one that leads. I do think DePIN, in my opinion, is kind of the most ideal fit for using crypto. I think AI is pretty good as well, but I also think there's a world in which you could use AI without crypto. I think crypto makes it better, but that doesn't mean it can only exclusively be used with crypto. DePIN is one that can kind of only be exclusively used with crypto as well. RWA is another one where it's like, yes, crypto makes it better, but it's not necessarily required. And so that's another thing that I'm seeing there of, I do think that DePIN is probably one of my favorite, at least like crypto native solutions. But overall, I mean, there's so many things, right? I mean, if we see NFTs make a comeback, NFTs did really, really well last cycle. And there's a world in which we potentially see those come back. Crypto gaming is another one that we could potentially see bring a lot of value on chain. There's so many things, and there's so many different opportunities within the crypto ecosystem. It's really hard to just focus in on one specifically. There's just so much going on. And so anyway, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and subscribe. It really, really does help me out. I was looking at my analytics the other day and realized that there's over 10,000 people that watch me on a somewhat recurring basis, but I only have just over a quarter of that subscribed. And so if you would help by subscribing and liking, all that type of stuff, it really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, please just feel free to drop those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of my comments, so that would be a great way to reach me if you're interested. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.